vengeful lady ghosts that I'm going to be speaking about today are Madame KoiKoi, who is an African legend, and Kuchisake-onna, Slit Mouth Woman from Japanese legend. Are you okay?
Why does it have to be
Because you're like sitting there and you're like, Are you alone today?
Yes, I am.
And we're back.
For episode 3.
And the first episode of Spooktober. My favorite time of year.
Mine too. I can't wait. I'm going to actually decorate this week.
I have big plans that, because I don't do that stuff, but I actually have plans because I feel like I can win. So I want to like, but I'm not going to tell you because I want to surprise
Win what?
you. Halloween.
How do you win Halloween?
I've never decorated up until like ever, because that's not my jam. Like even just to get me to decorate for Christmas is a schlep. But then I got this idea and I feel like I'm willing to partake in this inane activity because there's a chance that I could win. So now it becomes interesting to me.
You mean win at decorating?
Mm-hmm. Win Halloween.
Okay. Okay.
So, yes. And I mean, it's like my birthday month.
Mm-hmm.
Plus just
But
all
it's a
the,
big birthday. I mean, every birthday's big, but this one's a big one for you.
yeah. And I'm like, because it's just like all the spook. That's like what I'm about. Like I live in spook land 12 months out of the year, but in October it becomes okay. And that's why I love it. So anyway,
Spooky things.
to commemorate our first episode, I have migrated to my spooky mug.
Oh, I don't have anything themed.
It's a little bit busted up because it's old, but I love it. It's my little skull mug. And then, of course, the first time I ever felt seen was when I watched a spooky character who was nicknamed Spooky. And doing the t-shirt, Spooky Mulder, today to commemorate our first. I love Spooktober. You seem painfully underwhelmed.
Like, if this is you winning at Spooktober, I'm gonna kill it. So
No, because like your face is just basically the facial expressions I have to deal with on a daily basis. Like me talking about ghosts and people being like, looking at me like.
So, did anything scare you this week? Maybe we should start there, seeing as it is Spooktober.
Okay, so funny you bring that up. I was actually saving this for the podcast because I tell you everything because we talk for upwards of 12 hours every day. So remember how we always spoke about my new house being clean?
Mm-hmm.
So then it turns out maybe not so much, but I've also been slacking on burning the incense. And maybe it's just like my depression or whatever that's inviting things in. But anyway, so a shadow person paid me a visit. And it wasn't as bad as the worst shadow experience I've had. So it was fine because it's like, I could feel it, like, that feeling, that sleep paralysis feeling and whatever. And then, whereas usually I freeze up and hide under my covers like Stephen King suggests. This time I just sort of like looked over because I was under the blankie, and then I like looked and saw this mess that's not the usual mess in my room, and just like turned back over, and I was like, you know what, whatever. But I could fight it, like I could fight it off. It didn't get me. So I suppose that didn't scare me, but a scary thing that happened. What did scare me was last night I thought somebody had broken in.
Oh, real
So
world scary.
yeah, not spooky, scary.
Okay.
What scared you this week?
So this week has been hard preparing for the episode because I haven't wanted to research it because I get scared so easily. And also I'm alone here because Hugh's working. So
Okay.
it's me in this farmhouse by myself with nobody for hundreds of kilometers. So and he comes home late when it's dark already. Plus, last night the electricity, because of load shedding, goes off at 6, and I'm sitting alone in the dark in this
That's why
farmhouse.
you've been putting this off, because you're
Yeah,
a
I've been putting
scaredy
it
cat.
off because I've been scared. So last night when Lida came home, we had supper, whatever, and then when we got into bed, I did research because I wasn't alone. So anyway, also because over the weekend it was also a blackout. We were sitting in the room and it was pitch dark and we were talking. And then we just heard a commotion on my dressing table. And I have an antique dressing table, right? So like
You know about antiques.
so there's like a bevel mirror on the top, and then my cosmetic stuff like nail polishes and stuff like that. And then we heard a commotion and then things fall on the floor. But Astrid is with us on the bed. So there's nobody else. Seven's outside. Astrid's with us in the bed. We hear
Astrid is
commotion.
a cat, for those who don't
Oh
know.
yeah, she's a cat. Um, and then we're like, what the fuck? We hear things fall on the floor. So Hugh then goes to get a torch and looks, and then my nail polishes fell on the floor and was rolling around, triggered by a shower cap that was hanging to the side and above that fell down apparently and then hit the nail polishes, and the nail polishes fell on the floor. And from that moment forth, I haven't made eye contact with the mirror in the house. I just kind
Mirrors are portals.
and as soon as dusk comes, I'm like walking around like this.
No.
Because yeah, so that was I was scared. I was scared by that.
You have a lot of activity in that house.
Yeah, and the thing is, I can feel something in the house. Like even now, I can feel something in the house, but I'm just
And
ignoring.
they say talking about it sort of like wakes them up.
Exactly. That's
This
why
is also why I didn't really mention the shadow
So-
person, because I was like so disappointed, because I was happy at having a clean house, and then this thing happened. So a big part of me not talking about it was like I didn't want to provoke it or acknowledge them.
Mm.
It's game over now,
It's game
anyway.
over now because now we're doing this whole series, like my YouTube and like browser history. So anyway,
Yeah.
that scared me. But also I watched Hocus Pocus 2. Have you watched it yet?
No. And also like because the weekend was so busy, I wanted to watch it when it landed. But then I didn't get around to it. And then I spoke to you before I had gotten around to it, and now it's like I want to watch it even less. I mean, not even less. I was amped for it. I
Mm.
was really excited to see it, but hearing your scathing review.
It was such a letdown. So I guess that happened this week too. But I am putting together a fun Halloween movie night playlist for you and I.
Okay.
Things like Beetlejuice, that kind of vibe, not real scary things.
There was I came across a Twitter thread yesterday where someone was asking for like Halloween vibe movies, but
Mm.
not scary, for their kids. And I was gonna save it, but then it's like, yeah, and Beetlejuice, the Goonies were on there.
Mm.
Witches of Eastwick. I don't know if that's on your list.
No, I was gonna do the original Hocus Pocus,
Yes.
and Beetlejuice and Night Before Christmas. I like that at
Okay.
Christmas and at Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Those
I
are
mean, I'm
cool.
also not as young as I used to be, so I don't even know if I'm gonna get through those 3 in like movie
Oh, are
days.
you gonna like do it
I
all
want
in
a marathon.
one?
Yeah, I was thinking of doing
Oh,
a marathon,
wowzers.
but we'll see. Because I think I might be in Cape Town over Halloween. So
You
I
better
don't
be in Cape Town over Halloween.
because I don't think I'm gonna be here. So we'll probably do it
I would like you to
sometime.
be, yeah, and then you can see how I win.
Look, anything
I
that's gonna
mean,
get me in the decorating
I'm talking
spirit,
this
I'm
up
there
so
for it.
much. I actually just have one thing that I want to do. I don't know about
Are
anything
you gonna,
else.
like, make something little and then you're gonna be like, "Look at
This
this
is how I
girl."
win. All I do is win, 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 win. So, what are you reading?
I am reading.
I love your office, damn it. And all I have as a background is an unmade bed.
It's finally done, and I can finally move in. So now it's my happy space. I am
It looks
reading
like a happy space.
Wakenhyrst, which has I actually just bought it for the cover.
Mhm.
I really like the cover.
Oh, it's pretty.
And it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. So in Edwardian Suffolk, a manor house stands alone in a lost corner of the fens, a glinting wilderness of water whose whispering reeds guard ancient secrets. Maud is a lonely child growing up without her mother, ruled by her repressive father. When he finds a painted medieval devil in the graveyard, unhallowed forces are awakened. Maud's battle has begun. She must survive a world haunted by witchcraft, the age old legends of her beloved Fen, and the even more nightmarish demons of her father's past.
That's really stepping out of your comfort zone.
It's very different, but also because my imagination is very powerful and I've been alone, yeah, like I've been saying. So it's taken me a long time to
Why?
read this book. Only read
Oh,
at noon in the brightest of sunlight. Um, but it's actually really nice to read something that's different.
different.
Although it
Yeah.
started out as a bit of a murder mystery, and then I was like, "Is this a murder mystery?" But it's not.
Okay.
What did you
I
read?
mean, big surprise. I like scary books, creepy books. So anyway, I want to talk about two. So what I'm currently reading, I had to stop because so my um spooky kink, if you will, is a haunted house. I love haunted house. I love movies, TV shows, and that is why The Haunting of Hill House is like
That scared me so bad.
and one of the, if not the best, I would say top three shows ever made in the history of the world, despite that it's harder. It's just very well done. Anyway, that can be a whole 50 episodes. But anyway, so I started reading this House of
Mhm.
Leaves. It's a haunted house novel. I started reading this a while back, months ago. But then I had to stop because it's so scary. It's like while you're reading, you check over your shoulder to make sure, because you suddenly feel like you're not alone.
Mm.
Speaking about that, like calling things to you or whatever. But what is beautiful about this book is that it's the way that it's written. It's sort of like got
Oh,
annotations, and then there are parts like where it's upside down, and
okay,
there
so it's like
are,
an experience.
yeah, like notes in the margin. And can you sort of, so
Uh,
basically the way that it's written is so that it reads, because you're sort of following the main character, and the way that it's written is so that it reads, you follow his mental decline
mm,
as you move through the book.
that's
And
disturbing.
it's so good. It's so good and so creepy. Very well done. So that's something that I picked up again because I had to stop, like I said, because it was too scary. But I picked it up again because of spooky season and because I enjoy the story. It's just I need to take breaks. But because of this episode, I picked up a book I bought in March according to my inscription because I inscribe all my books. I bought it in March, but promptly brought it home and then buried it under a stack of other books because I wanted to own it to read, but I also knew that I didn't have the guts, maybe, or I think it's like trauma that's sitting with me from the movie. But anyway, I pulled it out because of this episode, and I am now reading
Oh my
The
God.
Exorcist. I'm now reading The Exorcist. Is it as scary as the movie? Not yet. But I think seeing the movie first is definitely, it probably makes the book scarier for me.
Because you have the imagery to draw on.
And also the law, just like how cursed the making of that movie was. So all of that is sort of like swimming in my brain while I'm reading
Sometimes I will on purpose force my imagination to make something comical. Like
it. Ridiculous.
exactly. Because it's too much to handle. So like so I'll take the vision and then almost make it low budget so that it's not as
As
scary.
scary. I
Um
mean, but don't you feel that you fail at that? Because you're
yes.
smart. Yes. So I was gonna say it's like you could try to trick yourself, but you know that it's real. So
So on that note,
so on that note, I think I go first today.
yeah.
And I'm gonna be talking about vengeance demons or
Okay.
vengeance ghosts.
Like Anya. Isn't it
So
Anya?
oh, Anya, yeah, was a vengeance demon. I was so sad when she died. She
I
didn't have to
love
die.
her. She was one of my favorite
She was so
characters.
cool. And I just loved the authenticity about her. Like she was just real.
Mm.
She was a favorite anyway. Yeah, so I'm gonna be talking about okay, not vengeance demons. That's my Buffy era coming out. I'm talking about vengeance ghosts. Um, so the definition, a vengeful ghost, is a class of ghosts that speaks to spirits of people who remain in the 3D realm, which is here where we are, specifically to seek revenge. And because this is Badass and Bookish, I'm going to be covering two female vengeance ghosts. So for the revenge part, it can be things like having suffered a cruel or violent death, or in some cases, even an improper burial could be enough for a ghost to stick around and seek revenge for in cultures where things like that are sacred. So in some cultures, burial customs are really important, like the Vikings, the Hindu. So when these customs aren't carried out, it could anger the spirit and result in it sticking around. So this is why getting into it, you'll find these vengeful ghosts in pretty much all cultures around the world because it doesn't take much for a ghost to want to stick around and sort of get one over on the people that wronged them. The main difference between a regular ghost and a vengeful one. So with regular ghosts, it's people who don't want to cross over because they have unfinished business or they don't know they're dead, so they don't know how to cross over, or it hasn't occurred to them. I don't know. But with vengeful ghosts, sticking around is a choice. They want to remain in our plane of existence to pretty much get revenge on the people they think wronged them in some way. So instead of being stuck in an old house, walking the same paths day in and day out, clanging chains and flipping light switches, these vengeful ghosts have a mission, an ice cold dish of revenge. Revenge is a dish best served cold. I think that's what I was thinking of when I wrote that.
Thanks for the ice cold dish of revenge.
Oh my God. Reports state that these ghosts actually torment people physically as well as psychologically. And that's what makes a good vengeance ghost. Is like if they have a two-prong attack. There have been cases of people being attacked, slapped around, and scratched by an invisible force. And where other types of ghosts can be helped to cross over, so to speak, vengeful ghosts don't leave until they feel they've punished the ones who've wronged them. So they're not satisfied until they get their own back. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Should I do like wellness checks every now and then?
No, it's okay.
Okay. So for crossing over, once these ghosts, so since these ghosts aren't like your average Joe ghost, getting rid of them is a little more complicated. So there's no helping them toward the light or whatever because they're not going to budge until they get their revenge. Because of this, people have had to get creative when it comes to banishing vengeful ghosts. So in religious cultures, this includes exorcisms. So not only of people, but they exorcise homes and other areas as well. You can exorcise objects, sort of like by binding, which brings us to the Dybbuk box. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I'm going off topic. Anyway, yeah, I'm going off topic. So it's exorcisms. Then another way is appeasing the ghost to get rid of it. If the only reason it's sticking around is to get revenge, you can help it do that so that it can move on. But this only works if you know who it is you're dealing with and why they are still around. So bringing a murderer to justice, for example, is a way of appeasing a vengeful ghost, getting revenge on their behalf. Another way in some cultures where sacred burial is a big deal, and you have to know who the ghost is and why they're sticking around. So if it's because they had an improper burial, a way to sort of help them to cross over is to then give them a proper burial so that their spirit can be at rest. In other cases, people would cover the dead body in salt, as well as place the person was killed and the murder weapon if they have it.
That's in Supernatural.
Oh, is it? So salt everything up and then burn it all. The body, the ground, the weapon. So they were actually working with actual law. I've never watched Supernatural.
What do you mean? I can rewatch that show so much in daylight.
It seems a little hokey to
I
me.
mean, what do you mean? Okay, just carry on.
I don't know. I feel like for me, I just get this like, like people making fun of ghost stories.
No, they're not.
I feel like they don't take it seriously, and that's my opinion. I'm allowed to have.
You're allowed to have your opinion, but you also don't like other, like you didn't like Grimm either. You're very purist.
Perhaps.
Purist.
Yeah. I just like it. People should respect the thing that they're dealing with. Anyway, that's a whole other 50 episodes. What I found a little strange in my research was this preventative measure I came across. The Northern Ache people. I mean, it's spelled like ache. ACHE. The Northern Ache people in Paraguay believe that some old people are hosts to vengeful spirits and cremate them off the bat instead of having a ceremonial burial. They're like, you're sus, not going to take the chance. They don't even like give the vengeance ghost a chance to materialize. They're just like, if you're old, we're burning you because just in case. So you might be wondering, what does this have to do with today's ghost story? As it turns out, and not surprisingly at all, is that most vengeful ghosts across the world, anywhere in the world, in any culture, most vengeful ghosts are women, which shouldn't come as a surprise because all you need to qualify is be treated like shit in your life, wrongful death. I mean, it makes sense. So the two vengeful lady ghosts that I'm going to be speaking about today are Madame KoiKoi who is an African legend, and Kuchisake-onna, Slit Mouth Woman from Japanese legend. Are you okay?
Why does it have to be
Because you're like sitting there and you're like, Are you alone today?
Yes, I am.
Oh no. Oh no.
Okay, let's hear it.
And I'm so excited. I'm like,
I am going to keep you on the line until 9 p.m. when you get home.
I'm like so excited over here. Like I can't wait to dive in, and you're just like, Oh my goodness. Okay. So Madame KoiKoi was a really cool discovery because I started researching her, or she came up when I was researching female women vengeful ghosts. And then as I got into it, I was like, she has been a part of my formative years and I didn't even know it. Anyway, let's get into it. So Madame KoiKoi is the African version of evil teacher ghost haunting students. Okay, so she's famous in Nigeria, in Ghana. In Ghana, she's Madam High Heel. In Tanzania, she's Miss Konkoko. And in South Africa, she's known as Pinky Pinky.
No ways.
Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
You remember Pinky Pinky, right? So I didn't know this.
Same,
reading up on
same
that.
woman.
Yes, I remembered that we had a Pinky Pinky. And we used Pinky Pinky to scare each other in school. Like whenever we went to the bathroom as a group of kids, a group of girls, we would use Pinky Pinky. And I thought that it was just young girls being stupid, but it turns out that it's real. And now I'm like, I wanted to say posthumously, but I'm not dead. What's it like?
Reflect.
I'm retroactively terrified for that girl that I was. I thought it was fun and games. So Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa all agree on the same things. She's the ghost of a mean-ass teacher and wears red high heels. The Nigerian name Koi Koi was given to her because of the sound her heels make going down hallways in schools and dorms. Madame KoiKoi is a 24/7 vengeance ghost, working during the day when she attacks kids in school bathrooms and at night when she haunts kids in their dorms, so at boarding schools. Bathrooms and dorms are her thing, apparently. She's known to target students who are at school either too late or too early. It's just, you can't win. Which at first I thought it was weird because what the hell does punctuality or tardiness have to do with anything? But then I realized it's probably those times when the schools are at their emptiest. So it took me a while to get there, but I got there. Also, it's a good time to have this kind of story. There are fewer witnesses. So if you are the person who you've encountered Madame KoiKoi, that's what I mean by it's a good time to have the story because there are fewer witnesses. You can sell it more easily to people when you talk about it because there's nobody who will be like, I was there. They're talking shit. It never happened, kind of a thing. So anyway, in Nigeria, the legend has it that this teacher was really beautiful and known for the red high heels she'd wear to school. You'd hear the clip-clop sounds as she made her way around. Another thing she was known for is being an asshole to the kids. I had a clip-clop asshole teacher, but anyway, she was apparently, right? So is that a thing?
And she was attractive.
Oh, my clip-clop teacher wasn't attractive. She just had the clip-clop heels and was an asshole. But then once you get to know
I'm not going to
her,
say this just in case this idiot. Oh my god.
what?
Oh my god.
What?
Had a realization. My teacher, the clip clop teacher, she wasn't an asshole. She was just strict, like very, very strict. And she was attractive. And her surname is actually Afrikaans for red. And I hope she never sees this.
The surname is Afrikaans for?
Red.
Red. Rooyen.
Close enough. Yeah.
Van Rooyen. Is
So,
it just Van Roy?
yeah. Right? How crazy is that?
So she better be burned because she's gonna come back as Madame KoiKoi. She's primed for it. She was a vengeful ghost in her waking life. So I mean, there's a difference between being very strict and being an asshole. Like Madame KoiKoi, for instance, was apparently really mean to the kids. She would slap them around for no reason.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about, like, I think we can all remember. Ugh, I don't know. Do you have experiences of teachers getting violent, physically violent?
I think it was illegal by the time I went through school. I
No,
remember
I'm not talking about getting like cuts or whatever. I'm talking about,
like manhandling a student.
yeah, like slapping them around.
No, that wasn't around when I was in school.
I had that history. I'm not gonna name names, but he was like an ex-military with a beard, and he would like grab the boys by their collars and shove them, lift them off the ground, like shove them into the board and stuff like that. Never with the girls, but with the boys. And even like today, I'm in my late 30s, but whenever I hear the word Mesopotamia, I see his lips moving under his overgrown, like beard mustache combo. Because he used to talk about Mesopotamia. Ugh.
And Mesopotamia is
Anyway,
such a wonderful concept. How dare you ruin it?
so he's ruined it. Yeah, he's ruined it for me for life. So, long story short, Madame KoiKoi was bad. But was she bad enough to deserve what happened to her? Anyway, so the stories got out that she actually got pleasure from beating her students. And apparently, there was never a good reason for it. She just enjoyed it. So that's where the stories, whether you're in Nigeria, Ghana, or South Africa, that's where the stories, the similarities end. So then it sort of splits into two different versions. In one version, it goes, one day she got really bad and slapped a student so hard she injured her ear or something, and so they fired her. She packed up, making a scene about how she was going to get revenge on the school and its students. And then on her way home, she was in a car accident and died.
Wow.
So that's sort of like a vanilla version of she got fired and was mad about it, and that's why she became a vengeful ghost. The other version is a little darker, and I should probably give a trigger warning for sexual assault here. So for anybody who might want to just skip past this part. But 3, 2, 1. Okay. So the students got sick and tired of her beating on them. And then when the school's administration failed to deal with her, a group of students decided to take it into their own hands. And then one night after school, they waited for her to leave. And when she went out to her car, they ambushed her, gagged her, and started beating her. One of them ripped off her red high heel shoe that she was wearing and then used that to beat her. Eventually, she stopped fighting back and stopped moving altogether. And they realized that they'd gone too far and that she was actually dead. In a panic, the students threw her body over the school fence, hoping that the police would think it was a robbery gone wrong. A divergence of that ambush is that one of the students there actually raped her as well. So then the students involved started disappearing one by one. Nobody could explain what happened to them because there was no note pointing to runaways or
So they
evidence
didn't,
pointing to
nobody
foul
knew they
play.
were responsible for it.
No.
Okay.
So then all the students that were part of that ambush started disappearing, and there was no evidence left behind. Until there was just one student left, and it was the one who beat her with her own shoe and apparently assaulted her as well. He told other students at the school that he could hear high heels walking in the hallways in his dorm at night, And he even said that he thought it was the teacher coming for him. So he went so far as to, because he was afraid, obviously the rest of his gang are gone and he's hearing these things. So he started talking about it and telling other students about it, but obviously nobody believed him. So then one night, the heels were back and he decided to go check where the sound was coming from. He never made it back to his dorm, and his body was found the next morning, badly beaten to death. After this discovery, the school was shut down and the students sent home. Another deviation. Oh, no, I said that already. Okay. So there are stories that it was the same boy who the teacher was secretly in love with. And that's why she was always so angry and abusive, because that's what happens when you love someone. So she loved him, but because she was the teacher and he was a student, never did anything about it. And then sort of, I don't know. That's one of the explanations. So this boarding school did exist and did shut down, and finding information about it is sketchy. Like, it's very difficult to find why it shut down, which leads me to believe that maybe there's some truth to these stories. So activity in this boarding school, some of the things that Madame KoiKoi does, aside from make a racket as she roams the halls of schools and dormitories, she opens and closes doors in the classrooms and the dorms. She can be heard singing and whistling in hallways. Most of the time when students report seeing her, it's that she's entirely invisible except for one red high heel that she wore the night she was killed. She haunts students in their dorms at night, waking them up in the middle of the night, demanding they return her missing shoe. In South Africa, where she's known as Pinky Pinky, she's visible only to girls, appearing in school bathrooms and threatening to attack them if they wear pink underwear. Do you remember that story? I remember that story.
No.
So, although she's not a beautiful teacher, she's part human, part animal. They don't say which parts are human and which are animal, but for whatever reason, she's invisible to boys. And although she does attack boys in their bathrooms and she leaves scratches on their faces and slaps them around or whatever, but the girls are where she's mostly sort of active, in the girls' bathrooms. So one of the stories that went around about Pinky Pinky was that you shouldn't say her name 3 times while looking into a mirror, which is that whole mirror portal thing, and where stories like Candyman and Bloody Mary come from, because that's how you summon the thing you don't want. And then that's also how a lot of girls scared each other. I remember like standing in front of the bathroom mirror and then saying Pinky Pinky 3 times and then running out while you're still in the stall and about to die. It was terrible. So a recent activity, like as early as the 2000s, after 2010s, we've had reports, Pinky Pinky or Madame KoiKoi reports. So a group of high school students in Kempton were having a braai or barbecue on the school grounds. That night, they dared a girl to go into the girls' bathroom by herself. According to the Facebook comment, she was in there for no more than 30 seconds before she came running out and crying. She told them that while she was in there, an angry voice told her to get out, and she was shoved really hard from behind. When the others inspected her back, they found 4 long claw marks on her back. And she was alone in the bathroom. So that's creepy. And that's
yes. I'm not gonna be able to pee for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and another mirror not to look into. I generally tend not to look. I don't look into mirrors.
But then I can't leave my office. I have to like walk between mirrors to leave the office.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm sorry.
Should have made this recording later.
So, do you want me? Maybe we should save the Slit Mouth Woman for another episode.
Even
It's
just
really
hearing
short.
you say that the hair on the back of my neck is like,
It's really short. So you know what we're going to do in the spirit of good mental health. We're going to leave this one for. I'll slip it into another episode.
if it's a
That we
short
will
one,
record
just
when you're
say it.
not
Just say
alone.
it. It's a short one.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to. And you know how the Japanese ghosts are.
Oh.
You don't want to have that image in your mind because, like you said, your imagination is like on overdrive. So it doesn't matter what I say or how long or short it is. You're gonna picture that girl from the ring getting out of the well all jerkily.
God.
I keep wanting to look behind me, but I don't want to.
Okay.
So I think I'm just gonna call it there.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I care about you.
Shoo. Because now I
Um,
already can't pee for the rest of the day or leave the room.
or leave this chair.
And the thing is, I have to go open for him, which means if the electricity is out, I have to walk through the dark house to go open the door because he didn't take a key. Why did he take?
You have a torch. Why didn't you take the key? Oh, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. You are in distress over this.
I'm in distress. You are not leaving the line. I don't care. Cancel your plans. You're going to be on speaker with me for the rest of the day. Okay. It's time for my story.
Okay.
And my story is going to be about the Bell Witch Haunting.
I love the Bell Witch, by the way. It's one of my favorites.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Actually,
so
look
bad.
this way a little bit so I can defend myself against the door. What?
I want to look behind me.
You see? Okay, the Bell Witch Hauntings is a legend based on a historical occurrence in 1817. So it took place in Red River, Tennessee, which in present day is close to a city called Adams. Yeah. And the story concerns John Bell, who is a wealthy farmer and moved to Red River in the early 1800s, so around 1804, with his huge family. He had a lot of children and his wife, and he was a wealthy farmer, so obviously he had a whole bunch of slaves. So in 1804, he bought the farm, which was 320 acres, with the farmhouse. And it was him and his wife and their children, Jesse, Drury, John Jr., Benjamin, Esther, Zadok, which I don't even know was a name, Elizabeth, who was also called Betsy, Richard, and Joel.
Sounds like an alien name. That's a lot of kids.
That's a lot of kids. I mean, I don't even know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 children.
What was his wife's name?
Lucy.
So John and Lucy, and then they born a Zadok. Do you think it's because their names were so plain they wanted to?
Maybe it's a Bible name, but a less common one, because they were very religious in the 1800s.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's a Bible name.
That's looking for trouble, but anyway.
So they buy the farmhouse in 1804 and move in with their family. Actually, while they're there, the younger kids are actually born there. So like Richard and Joel. Richard was about 6 when the happenings started at the farmhouse. So it started
Always
off
a farmhouse, eh? You must
right.
be careful.
This is why I'm facing this way now. So they were living there for 13 years, actually, before anything actually happened.
Unlucky number 13.
Exactly. And then it started off with their slaves reporting instances. So a lot of the slaves they reported that while they were working, they would see unusual animals making their way across the property, animals that wouldn't usually be seen there, and also
Okay.
animals that were also unusual. Like the one reported the animal had the body of a black dog and the head of a rabbit with red
Okay.
with
Okay,
red.
I'm fine.
And the one slave in particular was actually named Dean. It's
Oh,
very odd names.
supernatural. Okay.
Dean, he mentioned being stalked by a black dog while he was trying to do his work. And it actually repeatedly tried to attack him. So he would go everywhere with an axe and this amulet thing that his wife made him to protect him. There's Because it happened so long ago and people back then, I guess it was very easy to make up stuff. Let's put it that way. There are a lot of different
Mm.
accounts. Like in a one account, Dean was actually turned into a mule and then turned back again. So it differs. And also there was a book written about the whole saga called The Authenticated History. Like nothing was authenticated. It was just
Yeah. You
a
can't
record
fact
of
check
folklore.
when, there are hardly any books in existence.
Yeah.
I'm just like thinking like how they came to realize that Dean was a mule. Like some guys probably like walking down a farm road one day and be like, see a mule and be like, Dean, is that you?
Thank you, buddy. And he's like,
Like, how
"Oh,
does that even?
yeah."
And then be like, go to the market and then tell everybody, you guys aren't going to believe this. Dean was turned into a mule, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, he was probably just like high on something because
So I think it was a
spores.
case of Dean being by himself. So it's Dean's story, being turned into a mule and
Oh,
being turned back.
oh, oh.
Um, so things like that started happening. And then the other slaves also started reporting things like being locked out of doorways mysteriously.
Okay.
And then flickering lights, which they called dead man's candles. They would notice flickering lights at the tree line at night.
Okay.
And then it would move towards the farmhouse, but it would never quite get there. So it would just move and then go back. So things like that started. That's how it started. And eventually things started happening inside of the farmhouse. So the family started reporting things like knocking on doors, but then there's nobody there, and a room being empty, but then the sound of chains being dragged across the ground. While they were sleeping, they would hear rats gnawing on their bedposts, but there wouldn't be anything there when they checked. And then eventually it progressed to they would hear a disembodied voice like choking. And eventually a disembodied voice started speaking to them. At this point, John Bell, who through the 13 years, he'd actually risen to an elder in the church, in the Baptist church, which was like the center of the community. He was very respected. So he had a lot of contact within the church and just with powerful people in general. And he actually invited a few of these people over, essentially for a seance. They
Mm-hmm.
came over and tried to make contact to find out what the spirit wanted. And in that seance, they actually got a name out of the spirit. So apparently, the spirit said Kate, like that's the name. And in some versions of the story, some people saying that it's so they had a neighbor, Mary Kathleen, what was the surname? Man, who went by the name of Kate. So some people were saying that she's either the witch or the witch is hers,
Okay.
because the Mans have a family feud with the Bells and over a slave, basically, that was sold or something like that. So something happened. There was a
Okay.
disagreement between one of the men in the Man family, older men, and Belle. And what that has to do with her, she just happened to be somebody called Kate in the family. So it's like, it's a slippery slope because they could burn somebody for witchcraft and you didn't even have anything to do with it. So some people think that it's her, but there's no evidence linking it to any of the occurrences other than now the family feud.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that came out in the seance is that the
But
goal.
Sheba,
What?
isn't she connected to the Bell Witch? Bathsheba. Why is that name coming to mind? Okay, anyway, I don't
Um,
know what that was. Sorry. I just word
so
vomit.
during the seance, the voice also described its intention to kill John Bell. So that was what the spirit
So
wanted.
nobody's seeing anything, they're just hearing all these things.
Yep. So again, some people were looking at ventriloquism as a possible, but yeah, we'll get to that. Anyway, so basically for 3 years, shit just escalated. It went from, the knocking and stuff to actually physical assault, particularly on Betsy and John Bell. So Betsy would be experience sensations when she tried to sleep of like being pricked with needles, being beaten, being scratched, stuff like that. And then some of the kids would have their blankets ripped off them in the night. And John Bell reported having his shoes fly off. Why is he sleeping with shoes on? Was that a thing? I think that must have been a thing in the 1800s, but apparently it's bed
Why
shoes.
is he sleeping with shoes? Oh, his bed shoes.
I'm assuming it's bed shoes, but
Oh,
apparently his shoes
like
fly
bed
off.
slippers? That was a thing, I think.
And so apparently it got so bad that Betsy couldn't sleep. And then they sent Betsy to a neighbor's house to get a good night's rest. While
Oh,
sleeping at the neighbor's house, so everything was calm. Then all of a sudden, while sleeping there, the door flies open and a cold gust of wind sweeps through the room. And then eventually the neighbors struggle to light a candle, only to discover the door closed. And then a disembodied voice says, Betsy, you should not have come over here. You know I can follow you anywhere. Now get a good night's sleep. So so Betsy was one of the targets and John Bell. So the spirit wanted to kill John Bell, and it's reported to have said John Bell is a bad man on a couple of occasions.
okay.
It basically like hated John Bell. Betsy was also the recipient, but the goal with Betsy, because there was a couple of instances reported where it almost had a protective attitude towards Betsy as well.
Over Betsy.
Where like sometimes it would say, I won't bother you for the rest of the night, and she'll feel a hand on her face, like a motherly pat or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, John Bell being a bad man as an elder of the church, that tracks.
As a slave owner.
Yeah, that tracks.
So the spirit's intention with Betsy apparently was it wanted her to call off the wedding. She was engaged to her other neighbor and childhood sweetheart, Joshua Gardner. She was engaged to Joshua Gardner, but the witch wanted to keep them apart, and eventually the encounters became too much, and she called off the wedding, and they didn't get married. So anyway, so in 1820, John Bell gets sick. And so this is now after 3 years of torment. Why they don't just leave the house, I don't understand. John Bell gets sick, and Richard, actually, who is 9 at this point, he kept a diary later in life where he wrote down a lot of these things, and then he eventually turned it into a book, the various accounts of things. And Richard noted his father's complaints during this period while he was getting sick. And the complaints were things like twitching in the face and in the mouth and difficulty swallowing. And eventually one morning they couldn't get their father out of bed and he'd slipped into a coma. And then he died like the next day or something like that. And when they were now around the bed and stuff, John Jr. notices a vial of dark liquid on the bedside table next to his father.
Mm.
And then he is laughing and singing, like
Disembodied.
disembodied laughter and singing, and basically the witch taking credit for poisoning John. The Bell family then experiment with the dark liquid to see now if it is a poison. They give some to the cat, which is
I was
terrible.
gonna ask, like, how? And then
They
it
give some
occurred
to
to
the
me,
cat,
and then
and then the
I'm not
cat
happy.
died the next day. And then they threw some in the fire to dispose of it, and the flames turned blue for a period of time and then went back to normal. Also, apparently, the smell of the liquid, the doctor confirmed that it's the same scent that was on John's breath. So, in
Okay.
modern, like a modern chemistry professor, Dr. Megan Mann, she was really, now I'm thinking that it's not the man's.
Man. Because man is in the name of
I
the
got the name wrong.
uh,
Gun. It's
what?
gun. So the neighbors are
Oh,
guns, the guns, not the man's. I'll put a
like,
little.
what if she's a descendant of the man's and she's part of a cover-up
Megan
anyway?
Mann is the chemistry professor that was researching it to try to find an explanation for this. So she was saying all of those symptoms is in line with heavy metal poisoning, specifically arsenic,
Oh,
especially the way the cat reacted, the blue flames, and all of those.
okay.
Plus, in the early 1800s, that's when murder by arsenic was becoming quite popular. And a lot of women were using it to dispose of abusive husbands, and a lot of
Yep.
slaves were actually using it to get rid of their slave owners so they have a chance at freedom. So
Go
that was
slaves.
interesting, but it obviously doesn't explain the other occurrences.
Mm.
After that, there was no more happenings. The witch.
So once John Bell was disposed of, the
John
Bell
Bell,
Witch.
the timeline of things is things escalate, escalate, escalate. John Bell dies. Betsy calls off her wedding. The witch disappears. And then I think for 8 years, yeah, Betsy ends up marrying her ex-teacher. Richard grows up. Jesse and John married two sisters, Martha and Elizabeth.
So we don't hear about the Bell Witch again.
We do.
We do.
John
Yeah.
Jr. has an experience with her. So John Jr. goes on to become a farmer,
Mhm.
like his father, and he has an experience where she appears to him in 3 consecutive days and speaks to him about the past, the present, and the future. And in the last occurrence, she apparently descends into a ball of light and tells him that she'll be back to visit his direct descendant in like 108 years or something like that, or 107 years,
Wow.
which would have taken them to 1935. But in 1935, the descendants there weren't any notable things happening. There were a few other things, like, for example, Bob Bell, who is the 5th great grandson of John Bell,
Mhm.
reported to hear disembodied sounds like heavy footsteps while at his grandmother's home as a child or as a young person. And he would then grab a baseball bat to defend himself, but he would never find where it's coming from.
Ooh.
And also, he got a call from his grandmother the one day saying, "Get over here to the house quickly." When they got there, the butler's pantry doors were all open. The family china was strewn across the floor of the butler's pantry, but none of it was broken. So apparently, it all crashed to the floor, but none of it
It
broke.
didn't break.
But again, that could have been something audible you hear to discover that it's not, you know.
Yep.
So that happened recently. Then John Kellick, who is featured on the AME TV series Curse the Bell Witch, he further investigates the hauntings. Bob also appears in the series. There's also a play called Spirit by David Alford based on Richard's writings, and Bob is cast as his 5 times great grandfather in the play, and it happens every year in Adams, Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
So there was one other instance, though, actually of President Kennedy, who heard about these hauntings and then
Mhm.
wanted to go and check it out. So apparently it's when he was still serving. So
Okay.
his garrison, I'm going to venture a guess that that's the word. And
Outside.
he
I
was a
buy it.
landowner in Red River. And then in 1819, he traveled to go and see it for himself. Apparently, a lot of people, once people heard about all these happenings, they would come and see it. But the reports of what happened to them, I don't know how factual they were. That's why I just tried to stick with what was happening to the family, because of that whole authenticated history of the Bell Witch. I don't know how much of that was actually just to sell the book and how much of that was
Okay.
actually true. But apparently, a lot of people came, skeptics, cynics, and whatever, and the Bell Witch would talk with them to like
Okay.
prove her
But she exists.
realness, I guess.
Yeah.
So the one thing she was known for was quoting a sermon, quoting from 2 sermons that were happening at the same time.
I heard
And
about that story. Yep.
And then the other thing was English gentleman apparently came there, and she mimicked his parents to him. And he also got word from home that his parents heard his voice in the house and they were worried. So there was
Which
this,
sort of debunks the ventriloquism thing, because how can she be in 2 places at once, and how can she
unless it's
be
more than one
on
person.
another continent? And
But I don't know
also,
how real these occurrences were. That's the only.
okay.
So, but I'll tell you my theory.
Okay.
So
Because
in
even if there were 2 people, can I just say, even if there were 2 people back in like that era, there wasn't the technology to communicate instantly.
Mm-mm.
So with the 2 sermon thing, how is the one going to tell the other what's being said in the sermon so that she can quote it? Is what I mean.
Yeah, but I don't think the sermons were happening at the same time of the quoting. I think the sermons happened at the same time in 2 different places.
Oh,
And she quoted from both. Well,
okay.
that's how I understood it anyway.
Okay. So your theory? Oh, we're not there yet.
President Kennedy. So apparently he came, and then as he was now making the way there on one of the roads, the wheel of his carriage became inexplicably stuck. They couldn't get the wheel to move any further. So he dismounts, and apparently he hears a disembodied voice. And then he says, "By the eternal boys, this is the witch." And then everybody hears the voice saying, "All right, General, let the wagon move on. I'll see you again tonight." So the whole party of men hear that.
Heard that.
Then
Okay.
they set up camp for the night. So they carry on because now they're intrigued, apparently. And they carry on towards the farmhouse. They set up camp and they actually have a witch hunter with them. And then the witch apparently makes herself known within their camp. The witch hunter tries to fire his pistol, but the pistol won't fire.
I mean, you're a witch hunter and you come with a pistol?
Maybe it was a silver bullet. I don't know. So the pistol
Witch,
wouldn't
not a
fire.
werewolf.
And then the witch hunter is struck by an invisible force, apparently. And then they all turn around and leave, go back to Nashville. They don't carry on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that witch hunter was just having them on.
So I feel like I need to clarify. Yeah. Bell family is the main family that is haunted. The neighbor family who they were feuding with is the Bats family. And the man
What happened to Gun?
the gun are the other neighbors. So this is why I was getting confused. They are also from Red River, but they are actually the family that Jesse and John married into by marrying the Gunn sisters.
Okay. Okay.
And then the man, Megan Mann, is the modern day chemist.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So my theory is because the Bell Witch was kind to Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
She had apparently
Betsy.
had a soft, no, Lucy the mother.
Oh,
She had a
okay.
soft spot for the mother. Makes me think that John
Lucy's the
Bell,
Bell Witch?
yeah, I think she killed her husband. She was in the house all the time. She could easily have orchestrated disembodied voices, things like that. In that time when everybody was so quick to believe in the supernatural, you didn't have to do much other than hint at it, and then people's imaginations would take over.
I mean,
And I
if
was
President Kennedy is traveling to see the witch, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say either Lucy or Lucy and the slaves or the slaves.
Mm.
Because if they wanted to be free, they would have easily collaborated, or they could have thought
Mm.
it up themselves and then made up the stories of, because the dead man's candle, the animals, that was them.
Okay.
Doors being locked. So they and because it was such a big community of people who were almost considered a non-entity, you would just take the story and run with it. You wouldn't
Yeah.
that they are concocting this master plan to get rid of their owner. And they could have also had
Makes sense.
access to the house. So I think it was either the wife, but then why Betsy? Although with Betsy and the whole protective motherly feel she sometimes got from the motivations of the witch. Maybe this gardener fellow who she was going to marry, the mother didn't approve of.
Right?
Because some moms would do that. They would do whatever
That sounds like a
whatever
mom thing
needed
to
to be
do.
done, like to make sure you don't marry somebody who they think is unfit for you. So
Okay.
I think it could be Lucy or a slave
Mm.
that masterminded the whole thing. And I don't think that any of the subsequent happenings was the Bell Witch. I think that's people leaning on the legend for their own gain. For example, John Jr., he could have been
Yeah.
leaning on the legend for whatever,
Yeah.
ready to keep it alive. Who knows what he was
And
getting?
also the power of suggestion. I mean,
Because even
if
Richard
people
was a
believe that
child.
this thing, yeah.
Well,
So
he
if
would
people believe that this thing is real or true or whatever, like he was saying, the imagination is a powerful thing.
So other stories that I concocted in my head is actually Betsy being in on it as well, and not wanting to marry Gardner and needing a reason,
Oh,
needing an out, because he's a neighbor. I'm assuming
that
he's
makes sense.
wealthy. You know, why wouldn't she want to marry him? And
Mm.
instead, so Gardner actually ends up starting a railroad company and becoming loaded. So he gets
Mm.
more successful, and she ends up marrying a teacher. So maybe she was in love with, and it's her ex-teacher. Maybe she was in love with him all along and wanted to marry him. And
Oh,
maybe her father was abusive. That's why her father got killed. And
so it's
she needed
actually a love story.
It's actually a love story. Because
I
Richard,
like that
in
one.
Richard's account of things, I wouldn't believe as much because he was 6 to 9, so it would have been easy for an adult to fool him
Mm-hmm.
into thinking whatever he was experiencing is real.
Was real. Yeah.
So, and then, for example, this whole grandmother situation, I mean, Bob, you are playing your great, 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 great grandfather in a play every year, so he could be doing it to carry on the legend. Because in this town,
Because
there's
it's
so many
serving him.
attractions built around the Bell Witch legend. So if
Mm.
it's serving him and he's in the middle of the fame and the flurry, then
Yeah. He'll
you know.
want to perpetuate that.
So my ghost story is from a cynic's point of view today. I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
a ghost story. I
Even though
think
you are scared shitless and don't want to look into mirrors.
exactly.
You're like, I don't believe this is the one I don't believe.
This is the one I don't believe. But I think it's actually a woman who in a time where she didn't have much clout and pull, decided to pull a few strings to get what she wanted. Revenge on John Bell for whatever it was, and Betsy out of marriage, whether it's Betsy, her mother, a slave who was like a mother to Betsy. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. That
So
makes a lot of sense.
that's my story.
Because even like the name Bell Witch, it's like this family just had their own private witch
Mm-hmm. Look, there were
because
a
she
few
didn't
other
bother with
reported
anybody
things
else.
happening in the towns around them, but like the one that stuck out and is kind of like in one of the towns close by, there was an encounter that people started blaming on the Bell Witch, but then they found out it was actually a prank that was being pulled by a guy called Hickman in the town. And
Okay.
so, and for example, there was another preacher who and his wife who also alluded to the Bell Witch when coal started falling through their ceiling and walls and like basically like obliterating the place, like it damaged the walls, it broke furniture, it hit the wife in the head, she was injured, like, and apparently it happened for
That's
hours.
embarrassing.
But I mean, that
Oh,
could easily be an insurance situation. I don't know. You don't know. So I
okay.
think a lot of stuff that was attributed to the Bell Witch was actually somebody just looking for a scapegoat for their own cock.
Mm,
Um,
it makes sense.
but I would have liked to know more about Lucy and her story
And
because so
get that background.
when John died, he was like 70. And they
Mm,
had a 9-year-old, which means that Lucy must have been at
much
least 40
younger.
years his junior, 30 to 40 years his junior, right?
Mm,
So what is the story there?
I don't know,
So
but it definitely makes sense.
I would definitely look at Lucy and Betsy and want to know more.
That the Bell Witch was invented. Okay, well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I like the story of the Bell Witch.
I liked ending on the Bell Witch because it's not real.
And that's what I'm sticking with. Yeah, the Bell Witch sounds a little bit. I've known about the story, I've heard it a few times. It's never told from your point of view, though, so that was cool. Thanks. Thanks for that. It's
What do you
always told
mean?
from a believer's. It's always told from a believer's point of view.
Oh,
Like, ooh, these are the things that happened, and blah blah blah.
I feel
So,
like if it really was a ghost, then why arsenic? It's a very human way to kill somebody else.
right?
If it was a ghost, either suicide, like psychological torment,
Drive them to, yeah.
or pushing off a cliff, or I don't know,
Mm.
something like
I'm
that.
also like, what's getting me is the fact that these disembodied voice conversations or whatever, knowing that John was an elder in the church and have her specifically say John Bell is a bad man.
Mm,
Because if it's coming from Lucy, she would want people to know, you
mhm.
know, this elder in the church, he's not all you think he is, kind of a thing. So I think it definitely makes
Definitely,
sense.
John Bell is shady, whether it is assault or just the fact that he's a slave owner. I mean, that's enough. He probably a lot of
Mm,
slave owners assaulted their slaves. So there's a
yep.
whole bunch of women who would either, and the fact that like, she's in more than one place at the same time, that tells me it's more than one person in on it.
Person.
And that's
And
how you can never locate the knocking. You can never locate because it's
what better way to be invisible? I mean, a slave, nobody ever notices a slave.
Mhm.
And especially so, it could have been all of them. Like Lucy could have found out, discovered that he was assaulting his slaves or having relations with his slaves. And Lucy and the slaves could have then, collaborated
Mm.
to off him.
Or maybe Lucy knew about the assault with the slaves, but You know, like most women of that time, she was willing to overlook it until she found out about the assault of Betsy. And that would be the final straw.
Yep.
And maybe John actually arranged the marriage between Betsy and Gardner.
Because of the money. Yeah.
Because, yeah, and maybe this was just a way for everybody to get what they needed, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my theory anyway. And that's the end of episode 3.
That's the end of episode 3.
Of this book. I promise to not be as scared next time. I'll try.
I was feeling bad.
I'm sorry. I said you could stay. I said you could stay.
No, but the thing is, you're alone there. So
hopefully next week.
I may have been getting creeped out myself. Plus, I'm reading all these like scary books now.
Oh my God, I think I just need to watch like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or something. Like just temper things.
Yeah.
Temper the vibe. Maybe I'll burn
tonight. It's gonna be rocky.
It's a full moon this week.
Is it the 9th? I think. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, remember to like this video and share and subscribe. We are speaking to 0 viewers, but what if I'm speaking to the person who stumbles across us in 50 years' time and like, this podcast is underrated. Why do they have 0 subscribers? I don't know, viewer. I don't know. Anyway, comment and all that stuff. Give us 5 stars so that more people can find us. So then we might have 2 viewers.
And we don't have to come back as vengeful ghosts.
Exactly. So we don't have to come back. Cool. So this is one of 4 episodes, if I am correct, for spooky season. Good luck to you, Lan. But next week I'm gonna dial it up a bit.
I'm going to as well.
While I was speaking and I kept asking you, are you okay? And you're like,
I can't control being taken in by things. Like, I just can't help it.
So, I mean, anybody watching this, if you ever needed a reason to subscribe, Lana would be it. She's a great reason. We're going to watch her descend into madness, 1 episode at a time. Happy Spooktober!